Aravind K. Joshi 1929–2017 was a seminal figure in computational linguistics and cognitive science, best known for defining the tree-adjoining grammar tag formalism. This mathematical framework provided a way to capture the complexities of human language syntax such as long-distance dependencies while remaining computationally efficient, a property he described as mildly context-sensitive. Beyond tag, Joshi made significant contributions to the study of discourse through the development of the centering theory for local coherence and the creation of the Penn Discourse Tree Bank. As a longtime professor at the University of Pennsylvania, he co-founded the Institute for Research in Cognitive Science (IRCS), fostering a highly interdisciplinary approach that bridged computer science, linguistics, and psychology. His work earned him numerous prestigious honors, including the first ever ACL Lifetime Achievement Award and the Benjamin Franklin Medal. Born in Pune, India, in 1929, Aravind K. Joshi's intellectual journey began with a strong foundation in engineering and technology. He earned his Bachelor of Engineering in Mechanical and Electrical Engineering from the University of Pune and subsequently moved to the United States to pursue graduate studies. He attended the University of Pennsylvania, where he completed his master's degree in electrical engineering before shifting his focus toward the emerging intersection of mathematics and linguistics. Under the mentorship of Zelig Harris, who also taught Noam Chomsky, Joshi earned his PhD in 1960. This early exposure to formal linguistic structures and mathematical logic at Penn set the stage for his lifelong career at the same institution, where he eventually transitioned from an engineering background to becoming a pioneer in the field of computational linguistics. 1964 published a technical note on a theorem in information theory. 1967 co-authored a paper on transformational analysis of English sentences at Coling. Co-authored optimal decision functions for two noise states in information and control. 1968 co-authored retransmission schemes for communication systems with applications to group codes in IEEE transactions on information theory. 1969 co-authored string adjunct grammars at SWAT FOCS. Presented on properties of formal grammars with mixed rule types at Coling. 1971 co-authored some results in tree automata at STOC. 1972 co-authored a tree generating system at ICLP. Co-authored some results in tree automata in mathematical systems theory. Published the two-part series String Adjunct Grammars Parts I and II in Information and Control. 1973 co-authored a paper on semantics of predicate complement constructions at IJK. Published remarks on some aspects of language structure and their relevance to pattern analysis in pattern recognition. 1974 co-authored local transformations at the IFIP Congress. 1975 co-authored a formalism relating lexical and pragmatic information at TINLAP. Published the foundational paper Tree Adjunct Grammars in the Journal of Computer and System Sciences. 1976 co-authored some frills for modal tic-tac-toe, semantics of predicate complement constructions in IEEE transactions on computers. 1977 published short items on NLP and inferencing in the Sigart newsletter. Co-authored approximate responses from a database query system at IJK. Co-authored constraints on structural descriptions, local transformations in the Siam Journal on Computing. 1978 co-authored a paper on the vision-language interface at TINLAP. Presented a note on partial match of descriptions at TINLAP. Co-authored local constraints in the syntax and semantics of programming languages at POPL. Co-authored skeletal structural descriptions in information and control. 1979 provided comments for a session on knowledge at ACL. Co-authored a paper on lexicon management for NL interfaces at IJK. Co-authored Centered Logic, the role of entity-centered sentence representation in natural language inferencing at IJK. 1980 presented phrase structure trees bear more fruit than you would have thought at ACL. Chaired a para session on interactive discourse at ACL. Co-authored Local Constraints in Programming Languages Part I, Syntax in Theoretical Computer Science. 1981 co-authored Control of Inference, Role of Some Aspects of Discourse Structure Centering at HK. Co-authored Natural Language Interaction with Dynamic Knowledge Bases, Monitoring as Response at HK. 1982 presented 20 Years of Reflections at ACL. Co-authored Taking the Initiative in Natural Language Database Interactions, Monitoring as Response at ECAI. Co-authored Taking the Initiative in Natural Language Database Interactions, Justifying Why at Coling. Co-authored Processing of Sentences with Intrasentential Code Switching at Coling. Co-authored Phrase Structure Trees Bear More Fruit Than You Would Have Thought in the American Journal of Computational Linguistics. 1983 introduced a session on domain-independent NL interfaces at ANLP. Co-authored Mutual Beliefs in Conversational Systems at HK. Co-authored Providing a Unified Account of Definite Noun Phrases in Discourse at ACL Early Centering Theory. Presented Factoring Recursion and Dependencies at ACL. Co-authored Semi-Linearity, Paric-Boundedness, and Tree-Adjunct Languages in Information Processing Letters. 1984 co-authored Default Reasoning in Interaction at the Non-Monotonic Reasoning Workshop. Co-authored Preventing False Inferences at Coling. Co-authored Living Up to Expectations, Computing Expert Responses at AAAI. 1985 served as editor for the Proceedings of HK. Co-authored LandScan, a natural language and computer vision system at HK. Co-authored Some Computational Properties of Tree Adjoining Grammars at ACL. 1986, co-authored Some Computational Properties of Tree Adjoining Grammars at HLT. Co-authored Living Up to Expectations, Computing Expert Responses at HLT. Co-authored a panel summary on NLP research at HLT. Co-authored Tree Adjoining and Head Wrapping at Coling. Co-authored The Relationship Between Tree Adjoining Grammars and Head Grammars at ACL. Co-authored Natural Language Interactions with Artificial Experts in the Proceedings of the IEEE. 1987 presented Generation, a New Frontier of Natural Language Processing at TINLAP. Presented Unification and Some New Grammatical Formalisms at TINLAP. Co-authored Characterizing Structural Descriptions Produced by Various Grammatical Formalisms at ACL. Presented Word Order Variation in Natural Language Generation at AAAI. 1988 co-authored Feature Structures-Based Tree Adjoining Grammars at Coling. Co-authored Parsing Strategies with Lexicalized Grammars at Coling. Co-authored Combinatory Categorial Grammars at ACL. Co-authored an early type parsing algorithm for tree adjoining grammars at ACL. 1989 contributed a chapter on parsing tags to a theoretical computer science book. Co-authored an evaluation of lexicalization in parsing at HLT. Co-authored a panel summary on natural language research at HLT. Co-authored lexicalized tags, parsing, and lexicons at HLT. Co-authored The Relevance of Lexicalization to Parsing at IWPT. Co-authored Treatment of Long-Distance Dependencies in LFG and TAG at ACL. 1990 co-authored Two Recent Developments in Tree Adjoining Grammars at HLT. Co-authored a panel summary on natural language research at HLT. Co-authored Using Lexicalized Tags for Machine Translation at Coling. 1991 co-authored Fixed and Flexible Phrase Structure, Coordination in Tree Adjoining Grammars at HLT. Co-authored a panel summary on natural language research at HLT. Co-authored Long-Distance Scrambling and Tree Adjoining Grammars at EACL. 1992 contributed a chapter on tree adjoining and lexicalized grammars to a book. Co-authored a panel summary on natural language research at HLT. Co-authored XTAG, a graphical workbench for developing tree-adjoining grammars at ANLP. 1993 contributed a chapter on NLP to a computational statistics book. Co-authored a panel summary on natural language research at HLT. Co-authored a report on a workshop for Grand Challenge applications in IEEE TKDE. 1994 published online technical reports on dependency grammars, translation, supertagging, and scrambling. Co-authored a panel summary on NLP research at HLT. Co-authored disambiguation of superparts of speech or supertags, almost parsing at Coling. Co-authored Korean to English translation using synchronous tags at AMTA. Presented the abstract From Strings to Trees to Strings to Trees at ACL. 1995 published online technical reports on processing models and explanation-based learning. Co-authored Using Parsed Corpora for Circumventing Parsing in a book. Co-authored some novel applications of explanation-based learning for parsing lexicalized tree-adjoining grammars at ACL. Published the seminal paper Centering, a framework for modeling the local coherence of discourse in computational linguistics. 1996 published an online technical report on coordination in tags. Served as editor for the proceedings of ACL. Co-authored Partial Proof Trees, Resource-Sensitive Logics, and Syntactic Constraints at LACL. Co-authored Coordination in Tree-Adjoining Grammars, Formalization and Implementation at Coling. Co-authored a parser from Antiquity in Natural Language Engineering. 1997 co-authored the chapter Tree-Adjoining Grammars in the Handbook of Formal Languages. Received and presented the Research Excellence Award at IJK. 1998 published an online technical report on anchoring LTAG for discourse. Co-authored Partial Proof Trees and Structural Modalities at TAG+. Co-authored an LTAG perspective on categorial inference at LACL. Published Relationship between Natural Language Processing and AI in AI Magazine. Published Role of Constrained Computational Systems in Natural Language Processing in Artificial Intelligence. 1999 presented Explorations of a Domain of Locality at CLIN. Co-authored Discourse Relations, a structural and presuppositional account using lexicalized tag at ACL. Published Supertagging, an approach to almost parsing in computational linguistics. 2000 presented Relationship between strong and weak generative power of formal systems at TAG+. Co-authored A Uniform Method of Grammar Extraction and its Applications at IMLP. Co-authored Dynamically Altering Agent Behaviors Using Natural Language Instructions at Agents. Co-authored some experiments on indicators of parsing complexity for lexicalized grammars at ELSPS. 2001 published an online technical report version of Anaphora and Discourse Structure. Presented the XTAG project at Penn at IWPT. Co-authored Automatically Extracting and Comparing Lexicalized Grammars for Different Languages at IJK. 2002 co-authored Acumen, Amplifying Control and Understanding of Multiple Entities at EMAS. 2003 co-authored Using LTAG-based Features in Parse Reranking at IMLP. Co-authored an SVM-based voting algorithm with application to parse reranking at CoNLL. Presented Starting with Complex Primitives Pays Off at Cycling. Co-authored a SNO-based supertagger with application to NP chunking at ACL. Published a note on the strong and weak generative powers of formal systems in theoretical computer science. Co-authored DLTAG System, Discourse Parsing with a Lexicalized Tree-Adjoining Grammar in the Journal of Logic, Language, and Information. Co-authored Anaphora and Discourse Structure in Computational Linguistics. 2004 co-authored Annotating Discourse Connectives and Their Arguments at ANACL HLT Workshop. Co-authored Proposition Bank 2, delving deeper at an HLT workshop. Co-authored the Penn Discourse Tree Bank at LREC. Co-authored Flexible Margin Selection for Reranking with full pairwise samples at IJKNELP. Published Domains of Locality in Data and Knowledge Engineering. Published Starting with Complex Primitives Pays Off in Cognitive Science. 2005 co-authored Measuring the Relative Compositionality of Verb-Noun VN Collocations at HLT-IMLP. Co-authored Incremental LTAG Parsing at HLT-IMLP. Co-authored Relative Compositionality of Multi-Word Expressions at IJKNELP. Co-authored Attribution and the Non-Alignment of Syntactic and Discourse Arguments of Connectives at an ACL workshop. Published Ranking and Reranking with Perceptron in Machine Learning. 2006 co-authored The Metagrammar Goes Multilingual at TAG. Co-authored Protein Folding and Chart Parsing at IMLP. Co-authored Attribution and its Annotation in the Penn Discourse Tree Bank in Traitement Automatique de Langues. Co-authored Computing Discourse Semantics in the Journal of Semantics. Co-authored Grammatical Representations of Macromolecular Structure in the Journal of Computational Biology. Co-authored A Grammatical Theory for the Conformational Changes of Simple Helix Bundles in the Journal of Computational Biology. 2007 co-authored a paper on discriminative word alignment at SSST. Co-authored Logic-Based Regulatory Conformance Checking at the Monterey Workshop. Presented Towards Discourse Meaning at the Monterey Workshop. Co-authored Detecting Compositionality of Verb-Object Combinations at IMLCONL. Co-authored Guided Learning for Bidirectional Sequence Classification at ACL. 2008 served as an editor for Parser Evaluation Workshop Proceedings. Co-authored Flexible Composition, Multiple Adjoining and Word Order Variation at TAG. Co-authored Checking Traces for Regulatory Conformance at RV. Co-authored The Penn Discourse Tree Bank 2.0 at LREC. Co-authored LTAG Dependency Parsing with Bidirectional Incremental Construction at IMLP. Co-authored Reasoning about Conditions and Exceptions to Laws at Dion. Co-authored Easily Identifiable Discourse Relations at Coling. Co-authored Sense Annotation in the Penn Discourse Tree Bank at Cycling. Co-authored a pilot annotation to investigate discourse connectivity in biomedical text at BioNLP. Co-authored Towards an Annotated Corpus of Discourse Relations in Hindi at ALR. Published LTAG Spinal and the Tree Bank in Language Resources and Evaluation. 2009 co-authored the Hindi Discourse Relation Bank at the Linguistic Annotation Workshop. 2010 co-authored Unavoidable Ill-Nestedness in Natural Language at TAG. Co-authored A Discriminative Approach for Dependency-Based Statistical Machine Translation at SSST. Co-authored Discourse Indicators for Content Selection in Summarization at SIGDIAL. Co-authored Using Entity Features to Classify Implicit Discourse Relations at SIGDIAL. Co-authored Annotation of Discourse Relations for Conversational Spoken Dialogues at LREC. Co-authored Exploiting Scope for Shallow Discourse Parsing at LREC. Co-authored Realization of Discourse Relations by Other Means at Coling. 2011 co-authored Tree Rewriting Models of Multi-Word Expressions at an ACL workshop. Co-authored Computing Logical Form on Regulatory Texts at IMLP. Co-authored A New Approach to Ranking Over-Generated Questions at an AAAI Symposium. Published Permission to Speak, A Logic for Access Control and Conformance in the Journal of Logical and Algebraic Methods in Programming. Published The Biomedical Discourse Relation Bank in BMC Bioinformatics. 2012 co-authored Delayed Tree Locality, Set Locality, and Clitic Climbing at TAG. Co-authored Evaluation of Discourse Relation Annotation in the Hindi Discourse Relation Bank at LREC. Co-authored Discourse Structure and Computation, Past, Present, and Future at an ACL workshop. 2013 presented an invited talk on dependency representations at DEP Ling. Co-authored assessment of different workflow strategies for annotating discourse relations at cycling. 2014 presented a keynote on complexity of dependency representations at ICON. Published a dependency perspective on the adequacy of tree-local multi-component tree-adjoining grammar in the Journal of Logic and Computation. Co-authored reflections on the Penn Discourse Tree Bank, comparable corpora, and complementary annotation in computational linguistics. 2015 co-authored Bridging Sentential and Discourse-Level Semantics Through Clausal Adjuncts at LSD-SEM. Co-authored A Remembrance for Jane J. Robinson in Computational Linguistics. 2016 co-authored Annotating Discourse Relations with the PDTB Annotator at Coling Demos. Co-authored a Discourse Annotated Corpus of Conjoined VPS at Law at ACL. Aravind K. Joshi passed away on December 31, 2017, at his home in Philadelphia at the age of 88. His death marked the end of an era for the University of Pennsylvania community, where he had served as a dedicated faculty member for over 5 decades. He is remembered by the global scientific community not only for his brilliant technical mind but also for his immense kindness and mentorship to generations of researchers.